It all started with a press conference that was supposed to be routine. Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, stepped up to the podium with her usual poise, promising new, legal accountability for what she called deep misconduct tied to political operatives. While she didn't name names, everyone knew who she was targeting: Kash Patel, former Trump advisor, outspoken conservative, and lately, her loudest critic. Kash watched from a distance, arms crossed, smirking. He'd seen this playbook before: grandstanding, vague accusations, and trial by media tactics. But this time, he wasn't going to sit back. That same evening, Kash fired back. Not with a tweet. Not with a podcast rant. But with a live-streamed announcement that had viewers flooding in by the tens of thousands within minutes. "I've seen political lawfare before, but this is personal. Letitia James just declared war, and I don't lose fights like this." The screen behind him lit up. Documents. Emails. Timelines. Receipts. And what followed was the beginning of a public demolition unlike anything James had faced before. The next morning, Letitia James's office was eerily quiet. Staffers huddled around screens. Phones buzzed non-stop. Emails flooded in. Something had shifted, and it wasn't in her favor. Kash Patel had done more than speak out. He had dropped a trove of documents into the public domain, each one meticulously laid out in a 20-minute broadcast that was now circulating like wildfire. What did the documents reveal? Blatant coordination between Letitia's team and a network of partisan activists, individuals who had been flagged in past investigations for unethical legal targeting. One email, timestamped just days before James's press conference, showed her office consulting with a known political strategist about narrative framing, before any legal case had even been filed. Kash didn't stop there. He revealed internal memos from whistleblowers who had worked under James, memos outlining pressure to pursue headline-generating cases, even when the legal ground was shaky. "This isn't justice," Kash declared during the stream. "This is theater, and you just got caught rehearsing your lines." By noon, the hashtag Letitia Exposed was trending nationwide. News outlets that once treated her statements as gospel were now hesitating, backpedaling, digging for confirmation. Even some of her usual allies started to go quiet. James's next move would be critical. But Patel wasn't waiting. Letitia James had barely begun damage control when Kash Patel made his next bold move, and this time, he wasn't behind a camera. He walked straight into the lion's den. CNN. MSNBC. CBS. Every outlet that once avoided him was now desperate for a response. Kash agreed, but on one condition: live, unedited interviews. First stop, MSNBC. The anchor tried to set the tone, asking, "Mr. Patel, aren't you just deflecting from legitimate scrutiny?" Kash leaned in, calm and cutting. "No. I'm exposing the weaponization of your friends in government. And if anyone's deflecting, it's the Attorney General who staged a press conference before even filing charges." The host blinked, caught off guard. Cameras rolled. The control room hesitated. Do they cut to commercial? But it was too late. The clip was already going viral. Next was CNN. They tried to pivot, focusing on Kash's past work with Trump. He fired back immediately. "You're digging into my resume while ignoring that Letitia James coordinated with partisan donors before launching an investigation. I brought the proof. Show your viewers that, or admit you're covering for her." Once again, the interview spiraled, just not the way they expected. Patel wasn't defensive. He was strategic. Each question turned into an opportunity to hammer his message: this isn't about politics. It's about corruption. By the end of the day, clips of Kash dismantling interviewers were all over social media, stitched into reaction videos, turned into TikToks, and even played on loop on conservative talk shows. Letitia's office remained silent. But the silence wouldn't last. Because Kash Patel wasn't done yet. Just when the buzz seemed to reach its peak, another bombshell dropped, this time from an anonymous source inside the New York Attorney General's office. A confidential deposition transcript leaked online. Within minutes, it was verified. Within hours, it was headline news. The deposition featured a former senior legal analyst under Letitia James, someone who had quietly resigned months earlier. Under oath, the analyst detailed how investigations were often tailored to create media impact, not based on prosecutable evidence. One quote hit like a political nuke: "We were told, directly, make it headline-worthy. Well, fill in the legal gaps later." Kash Patel wasted no time. He held another live stream that night, this time reading the deposition line by line. He didn't need theatrics, the words spoke for themselves. With every paragraph, it became clearer, Letitia James's office was playing politics under the guise of justice. "This isn't just unethical," Kash said. "It's abuse of power. She didn't come after me with facts, she came with a script. And now that script is unraveling." Within 24 hours, state legislators were demanding an inquiry. Legal experts across the spectrum began calling the AG's tactics reckless. And Letitia James? She canceled a scheduled press briefing, for the first time in over a year. Kash wasn't just winning in the court of public opinion. He was forcing her into retreat. And the next chapter would make it official. The pressure had been building for days, but after the deposition leak, it exploded into full-blown political crisis. By mid-morning, the New York State Capitol was in chaos. A bipartisan coalition of lawmakers, including several who had previously aligned with Letitia James, called an emergency press conference. What started as a cautious inquiry turned into a public rebuke. "This isn't about left or right," one state senator declared. "This is about restoring integrity to the justice system. If the Attorney General weaponized her office for political attacks, there must be consequences." Meanwhile, Patel was watching from D.C., arms folded, expression steady. He didn't gloat. He didn't need to. The truth was doing the work for him. Cable networks shifted their tone. Legal experts, even on traditionally liberal panels, began expressing concerns about due process violations, selective prosecution, and media manipulation from the AG's office. Letitia James tried to push back, issuing a carefully worded statement blaming far-right operatives for orchestrating a smear campaign. But Kash Patel went live within the hour. He held up the statement on paper, stared into the camera, and said, "Far-right? Let me remind you, the whistleblower worked in your office. The lawmakers calling for answers. From both parties. You can't spin this anymore. You played dirty, and now you're getting demolished." The clip was reposted by every major political page online. And just when it looked like the storm couldn't get worse for Letitia, the internal audit hit the press. The knockout blow came not from Kash Patel, but from inside Letitia James's own house. A long-delayed internal audit of the Attorney General's discretionary spending, which had quietly circulated through state budget committees, suddenly found its way into the public eye. The findings were damning. Over $4.3 million in taxpayer funds had been funneled into media consultancy services over a 2-year period, much of it directed to firms with direct political ties to Letitia's former campaign team. Some of these contracts were marked as emergency expenditures, bypassing standard state approval procedures. One particularly shocking discovery. A private firm had been paid over $600,000 to monitor conservative influencers and preemptively flag online narratives that could undermine public confidence in the AG's initiatives. Kash Patel was one of the names listed. Once again, Patel took to the airwaves, but this time, he didn't need to say much. He held up the audit report, flipped to the flagged section, and simply said, "They spent your money to spy on me, because I was telling the truth." Public outrage erupted. News outlets couldn't ignore it. Even Letitia's staunchest defenders began distancing themselves. Editorials ran with titles like "Justice Weaponized," The Shame of New York's AG, and When Accountability Becomes a PR Campaign. Within 48 hours, a formal ethics investigation was announced. Calls for Letitia James's resignation surged. Her approval ratings nosedived by double digits. Meanwhile, Kash Patel. He stayed calm, focused, and relentless, promising he wasn't done yet. Because now, it wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about restoring the credibility of a system that had been twisted for power. The room was packed. Cameras lined the perimeter. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle leaned forward in anticipation. Kash Patel, invited by a special Congressional Oversight Committee, was about to testify under oath regarding abuse of prosecutorial power, and he didn't come empty-handed. From the moment he raised his right hand and took the oath, the atmosphere shifted. He wasn't there to perform. He was there to dismantle, piece by piece, with precision. Mr. Patel, a committee chair asked, "Do you believe the Attorney General of New York knowingly used her office for political retaliation?" Kash didn't blink. "Not only do I believe it, I've brought the evidence proving it." He slid a thick binder across the table. It contained communications between Letitia James's office and political PACs, contracts with activist media consultants, and handwritten notes from former staff warning about legal overreach. One note read, "This isn't about justice, it's about headlines. We're targeting Patel because he's too effective." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Kash continued, unwavering. "If an attorney general can turn the law into a weapon, with no consequence, we don't have a justice system. We have a political machine." The testimony lasted 4 hours. He answered every question. Presented every document. And by the time he finished, even skeptical lawmakers were nodding in agreement. Headlines erupted: Kash Patel lights up Congress, exposes AG's political agenda, AG James cornered, bombshell testimony may trigger prosecution. Letitia James, once the media darling, was now under federal scrutiny. And for Kash, this wasn't revenge. This was accountability. But just when the dust seemed to settle, one final twist would seal Letitia's fate. That it happened on a Monday morning, quiet, unassuming, until a familiar face appeared on national television. Her name was Elena Brooks, a former deputy communications director in Letitia James's office. For months, she had refused to speak publicly, dodging press requests and subpoenas alike. Until now. She sat across from the anchor on a popular morning news show, visibly tense but resolute. "I've stayed silent long enough," Elena began. "But after what I saw in Kash Patel's testimony, I knew I couldn't live with myself if I didn't come forward." The anchor, clearly surprised, leaned in. "What exactly are you saying, Ms. Brooks?" Elena didn't hesitate. Letitia James ordered a narrative, not a case. She said, "I want Kash Patel broken. I want him dragged. I don't care what we have, just make it happen." The studio went dead silent. Elena continued, revealing secret meetings where political operatives, not prosecutors, crafted the legal strategies. She exposed how press statements were written before evidence was even reviewed, how targets were chosen based on their social media reach, and how state funds were misused to manipulate public perception. Then she dropped the hammer. There was even talk of fabricating timelines to make Kash Patel appear as if he'd obstructed justice. I refused, and that's when I knew I had to get out. The interview went viral before it ended. Lawmakers demanded immediate action. The DOJ launched a formal investigation. And within hours, protesters gathered outside Letitia James's office, demanding her resignation. Meanwhile, Kash responded with a single statement: "Truth always finds a way out," and today, it walked straight through the front door of live television. The collapse of Letitia's narrative was now undeniable. But there was still one final chapter left to close. The hearing chamber was at full capacity. Reporters crammed shoulder to shoulder. Cameras were locked on. Every eye in the country was watching as Letitia James took her seat before the Congressional Oversight Committee. She was no longer the confident, media-savvy AG who once commanded the spotlight. She looked tense, her smile forced, her posture rigid. The chairwoman's voice echoed through the chamber, "Attorney General James, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" Letitia hesitated, just for a second, then replied, "I do." The question started like routine procedure. But it didn't take long before the pressure mounted. A congressman held up a printout of Elena Brooks's sworn affidavit. "Ms. James, your former deputy alleges that you directed your office to target Mr. Patel based on political pressure, not legal cause. Is she lying?" Letitia tried to deflect. She misunderstood the context, but the chairwoman cut her off. "Is that your sworn statement, that she misunderstood your direct orders?" Letitia paused. Cameras zoomed in. Sweat formed at her brow. Then came the next blow. A set of internal memos revealed in Patel's testimony, each bearing her handwritten notes. One said, "Control the media first, we'll figure out the legal angle after." When confronted with the document, Letitia stammered. That note was taken out of context. Gasps echoed across the room. Even her own legal counsel leaned forward, visibly concerned. The committee wasn't buying it. The final blow came when a congresswoman presented financial records tied to the media contracts. Over $4 million spent on narrative building while your office was claiming budget shortages. Explain that to the taxpayers. Letitia's composure cracked. Her voice shook. I acted within legal discretion. But no one in the room looked convinced. By the end of the hearing, headlines were writing themselves. Letitia James cornered, congressional interrogation exposes cracks in her defense, public trust collapses, New York AG's testimony fuels resignation demands, Kash Patel released a brief statement on X, she built her empire on media theatrics, and it collapsed under the weight of the truth. But there was still one final move to come, and it would finish what Kash started. That it happened just after noon. The New York State Capitol press room was packed wall to wall. Cameras buzzed, reporters whispered, and the nation waited with bated breath. Then, Letitia James stepped up to the podium, this time, without her usual entourage or carefully scripted confidence. No fiery speeches. No defiance. Just a folded statement in her hands, and the weight of political collapse on her shoulders. She took a deep breath and began. Over the past few weeks, accusations against my office have created a distraction that undermines the trust of the people of New York. Though I stand by my intent, I recognize the damage caused. Effective immediately. I am resigning from my position as Attorney General. The room exploded. Gasps. Shouts. A storm of questions, all ignored as she walked off the stage, refusing to take a single one. Within minutes, breaking news alerts flooded every screen in America. Letitia James resigns in disgrace after explosive testimony. Kash Patel's campaign for truth ends in stunning victory. Justice restored. Political lawfare falls apart under scrutiny. As for Kash Patel, he didn't throw a victory rally. He didn't mock or gloat. He simply released one final video, calm, steady, and direct. This was never about revenge. It was about accountability. When institutions are used to silence political opponents, the people suffer. Today, we showed the country that truth can still win, even against the biggest machine. The video closed with a single line, white text on a black screen: justice isn't a weapon. It's a promise. And with that, Kash Patel didn't just win a battle. He redefined the war.